You know the story. Agincourt. 6,000 English archers against 20,000 French knights. The impossible victory that changed everything. But how does a muddy field in northern France become the graveyard of French chivalry? How do farm boys with wooden bows cut down the flower of European nobility? What really happened on St. Crispin's Day, October 25th, 1415? The numbers don't lie. Henry V lands at Harfleur with 9,000 men. Dysentery cuts that to 6,000 walking wounded. Charles VI musters the largest army France has seen in decades. 20,000 heavy cavalry, crossbowmen, men-at-arms. The English are trapped between Calais and certain death. The French block every road north. If you value documented medieval history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Gesta Henrici Quinti and Burgundian chronicles. Now back to the story. Henry's march from Harfleur began as conquest, turned into nightmare. 17 days crossing rivers, the Somme crossings watched by French scouts, English soldiers drinking from muddy streams, eating roots and berries. 40 men die daily from the bloody flux. The king himself shows signs of fever. His army shrinks with every mile north. Maisoncelles, October 24th, the village where English soldiers spend their last night. 800 yards from French campfires. You hear their voices across the dark. French nobles gambling over English prisoners they haven't taken yet, betting on who captures the king, silver ekis changing hands, laughter that carries on cold air, English archers sharpen bodkin points by firelight. Check bowstrings for phrase. Each man knows tomorrow means death or glory. No middle ground exists between French steel and English yew. The king moves through his lines, speaks to companies by name, Yorkshiremen, men of Cheshire, Welsh longbowmen whose grandfathers fought at Crécy. Dawn breaks grey and wet. French battle lines stretch beyond sight. 3 divisions deep. The vanguard alone outnumbers Henry's entire force. Marshal Boucicaut commands the advance guard, 6,000 mounted knights. Behind them, the main battle under Charles d'Albret, 8,000 more. The rear guard holds another 6,000 fresh troops. French confidence runs deeper than numbers. These knights train from childhood, fight in full plate worth more than English villages. Their war horses cost fortunes, destriers bred for battle. Each French knight brings 6 attendants, squires, pages, grooms. The support train stretches for miles. This isn't an army, it's a moving city of war. The English formation looks pathetic by comparison. 6,000 men in 3 thin divisions. Longbowmen on the flanks, men-at-arms in the center. No cavalry worth mentioning. 29 horses for the entire army. Knights fight on foot by necessity. Armor pieced together from French corpses. Weapons borrowed or stolen. Geography tells the real story. The field narrows between woods. Tramecourt on the left, Agincourt village on the right. French numbers become a disadvantage in the confined space. 20,000 men forced into a front barely 800 yards wide. Units compress against each other. Movement becomes impossible. But mud decides everything. October, rain soaks plowed earth. French knights sink past their ankles. Horses struggle with each step. Plate armor becomes a trap. Once down, knights cannot rise alone. English archers see opportunity in French weakness. Stakes angled forward like a wooden wall, death waiting for anyone who reaches the line. 300 yards, the killing range. English longbows draw as one. Arrows arc high, then dive. Cloth yard shafts with bodkin points, designed to punch through mail at 200 paces. French horses take the first volleys. Animals scream and thrash. Riders tumble into mud. Knights advance on foot through dying mounts. John of Alençon sees the trap too late. His division charges the English right. 2,000 knights in plate mail, the finest fighting men in Europe. They reach the stakes. English men-at-arms surge forward. Swords meet steel in the mire. French armor protects but weighs them down. Every step costs effort. Every breath comes hard. The killing starts hand to hand. English daggers find gaps in plate joints, armpits, neck joints, visor slits. French knights swing great swords but lack room to fight. Bodies pressed together. Mud sucks at armored feet. Men fall and vanish beneath trampling boots. The field becomes a slaughter pen. If you value content like this, subscribe and support our work. Comment your city below. Charles d'Albret leads the French center, the Constable of France, veteran of 50 battles. He sees disaster unfolding but cannot stop it. His own men block retreat. French divisions push forward by momentum alone. Knights climb over fallen comrades. The advance becomes a death march through English arrows. English casualties mount too. French crossbows find marks. Knights break through stakes in places. Hand-to-hand combat costs lives on both sides, but mud favors the lighter, armed. English archers move freely. French knights struggle to lift weapons. Armor becomes a curse in close combat. The Duke of Alençon dies sword in hand. 15 wounds in his chest and arms. The Count of Marl falls beside him, throat cut by an English dagger. Nobles who planned to ransom English commoners bleed out in Norman mud, their gold spurs stolen before their bodies cool. Henry orders the killing of prisoners. 7,000 French captives kneel behind English lines. The King's Guard moves through them methodically. Daggers across throats. No ceremony, no mercy. French chronicles call it murder. English sources claim military necessity. The killing takes 2 hours to complete, but numbers lie. Recent archaeology tells different stories. Mass graves at Agincourt reveal English losses far higher than chroniclers admit. Not 25 dead, over 400 English bodies in common pits. Henry's great victory costs more blood than legends suggest. French resistance proves fiercer than English propaganda claims. The battlefield evidence contradicts contemporary accounts. Arrowheads found deep in French soil. Thousands scattered across the field. English archers shoot every shaft they carry. Scavenge more from French corpses. Some fight the final hour with nothing but mallets and knives. Victory comes at the edge of collapse. French tactical errors multiply the disaster. Heavy cavalry charges through mud against prepared positions. No flanking attempts. No coordination between divisions. Knights fight as individuals instead of units. Crossbowmen never get clear shots. The rearguard watches but doesn't engage. Strategic blindness at every level of command. Philippe de Charolais witnesses the slaughter from French reserve lines. His report to the Duke of Burgundy changes European military thinking forever. Knights cannot stand against massed archery. Plate armor fails against bodkin points. Chivalry dies in Picardy mud. The age of cavalry ends here. The aftermath spreads like plague across France. Noble families lose entire male lines. The Count of Nevers, the Duke of Brabant, 3 royal dukes dead in one afternoon. French political structure collapses with its military elite. Henry's victory opens the road to Paris, to the French throne itself. Verneuil proves Agincourt was no accident. 1424. English archers destroy another French army. 15,000 French dead, English losses under 200. The pattern holds. Longbow dominates heavy cavalry. Stakes and mud and desperate courage win battles that should be lost. The Treaty of Troyes makes Henry heir to France. Charles VI disinherits his own son. A Welsh king's grandson claims Charlemagne's throne. The 100 Years' War reaches its climax. All because 6,000 English archers refuse to break under impossible odds. English longbow technology spreads across Europe. Use staves imported from Spain and Italy. Draw weights standardized at 150 pounds. Training programs established in every English county. Sunday archery practice becomes law. The weapon that wins Agincourt reshapes military doctrine for generations. French military reforms follow defeat. Knights learn to fight on foot. Plate armor improves to stop bodkin points. Crossbow design advances. Artillery development accelerates. The lessons of Agincourt burn deep in French military memory. Never again will cavalry charge prepared bowmen across open ground. But victory comes with hidden costs. English soldiers carry diseases home from French campaigns. The Black Death returns with returning armies. Peasant revolts follow economic disruption. Military success breeds political instability. Henry V dies of fever 2 years after his greatest triumph. The longbow's dominance proves temporary. Firearms replace bows within decades. Cannons breach castle walls that arrows cannot touch. The age of individual skill yields to mass production. Agincourt represents both the height and the end of medieval archery warfare. Archaeological evidence reveals the human cost. Bone analysis shows arrow trauma patterns, skulls crushed by warhammers, rib cages pierced by bodkin points, bodies buried hastily in mass graves, French knights and English archers mixed together in death. The mud holds no distinction between noble blood and common. French survivors carried trauma for decades. Philippe de Comines describes veterans who cannot speak of Agincourt without weeping. Noble families commission masses for dead sons. Monasteries record prayers for knights who never came home. The psychological wounds prove deeper than physical ones. English propaganda transforms disaster into legend. Ballads spread through alehouses and markets, the few defeating the many. David against Goliath with longbows instead of slings. Shakespeare will make immortal poetry from French corpses. But the mud tells darker truths than English verse. Recent excavations at Agincourt uncover new evidence, English arrow points mixed with French, suggesting closer combat than sources admit, bone fragments showing trauma from multiple weapon types. The battlefield archaeology contradicts neat narratives of archer dominance. Death came from many directions in the Norman mud. Here's what changes everything. Soil analysis reveals the field stayed waterlogged for days after the battle. English survivors wade through pools of mud and blood to reach Calais. French reinforcements arriving late find only corpses. The victors disappear into autumn mist. leaving 20,000 reasons why heavy cavalry fears the English longbow. Henry's personal combat record tells another story. The king fights in the front ranks at Agincourt, takes a blow to his helm that dents the crown. French axes ring against English steel. Royal blood mixes with common in the mud. Chronicles describe Henry pulling arrows from his own armor. The Crown Prince of England nearly dies in a Picardy field. English medical knowledge saves lives. French chivalry cannot. Army surgeons treat arrow wounds with boiled wine. Cauterize cuts with red-hot iron. Amputation techniques learned in Welsh border wars. Field hospitals behind English lines process hundreds of wounded. French knights bleed out where they fall. No medical corps exists for noble casualties. The economics of medieval warfare play out in corpse robbing. English archers strip French dead before bodies cool. Gold spurs worth a year's wages, silver belt fittings, jeweled sword hilts, mail shirts sold for scrap metal. A single French knight's equipment feeds an English family for months. Victory pays immediate dividends in plundered wealth. French ransom culture backfires catastrophically. Knights surrender expecting honorable captivity, comfortable imprisonment until families pay release fees. Standard practice for centuries, but Henry orders mass execution instead. Throats cut in muddy fields. 7,000 surrendered nobles die like common soldiers. Chivalric convention collapses with French throats. The Burgundian alliance shifts European balance permanently. Duke Philip the Good watches French disaster from neutral ground. Decides England offers better partnership than Paris. Burgundian wealth flows to English war chests. French civil war intensifies with foreign backing. Agincourt creates the diplomatic revolution that crowns Henry heir to France. English longbow manufacturing becomes state industry overnight. Royal workshops in London produce 1,000 arrow batches. Welsh yew forests managed like strategic resources. Bowyers receive tax exemptions and royal protection. Arrow production standardized across regional centers. Military industrialization begins in English archery shops. French counter-innovations emerge from defeat. Crossbow guilds experiment with steel prods. Mechanical windlasses increase draw weights. Bolt design improves for armor penetration. Artillery development accelerates after Agincourt failures. The first primitive handguns appear in French arsenals within decades. Gunpowder answers the longbow challenge. Weather records from 1415 reveal exceptional autumn rainfall. Monasteries across northern France document flooding, harvest failures, muddy roads impassable for weeks. The battle happens during the worst October in living memory. English victory depends on French bad luck with Norman weather patterns. Plague aftermath compounds French military disaster. English armies carry diseases home from continental campaigns. The Black Death returns with victorious soldiers. French population already devastated by war faces new epidemic waves. Demographic collapse follows military defeat. England inherits a depopulated kingdom. Joan of Arc's mission gains urgency from Agincourt trauma. French national consciousness crystallizes around reversing English domination. Peasant girl from Domremy channels collective memory of noble failure. Divine intervention becomes French military doctrine. Mysticism replaces tactical thinking in response to longbow supremacy. The Dauphin's disinheritance stems directly from battlefield politics. Charles VI's mental illness worsens after receiving casualty reports. Burgundian influence grows with French weakness. The Treaty of Troyes becomes inevitable when French nobility cannot field effective armies. Military defeat enables political revolution. English garrison warfare follows victory patterns established at Agincourt. Harfleur holds with archer garrisons. Calais remains English for another century. Normandy falls to longbow-supported sieges. The tactical lessons learned in muddy fields reshape occupation strategy across conquered France. Scottish alliance with France intensifies after Agincourt. Stuart kings see English strength threatening northern borders. Franco-Scottish coordination improves with shared anti-English interests. The Auld Alliance deepens in response to longbow dominance. Regional balance shifts across northwestern Europe. Mercenary companies adopt English tactics continent-wide. Swiss pikemen integrate archer support. German crossbow units study Agincourt reports. Italian condottieri hire English longbow specialists. Military innovation spreads through professional soldier networks. The battle influences warfare from Scotland to Sicily. Monastic chronicles provide the most reliable casualty figures. Abbey records list noble deaths with precision impossible in royal propaganda. Saint-Denis catalogues French losses by family name. English monasteries document veteran pensions and war wounds. Religious sources contradict official accounts on both sides. Archaeological metal detection reveals weapon distribution patterns. Arrowheads cluster near French advance positions. Sword fragments scattered across the killing zone. Armor pieces concentrated where knights made final stands. The debris field maps tactical movements with scientific precision. Modern technology confirms medieval accounts. Henry's death 2 years later raises succession questions that Agincourt created. Victory makes him heir to France, but kills him before coronation. Infant Henry VI inherits impossible claims. English dominance proves temporary without the victor alive to enforce it. Personal triumph becomes dynastic disaster. French military academies study Agincourt for centuries afterward. Tactical analysis becomes required curriculum. Officer training emphasizes combined arms coordination. The battle serves as a negative example of aristocratic overconfidence. Professional military education begins with lessons learned in Norman mud. English archery law mandates Sunday practice until the 17th century. Village greens host weekly competitions. Sheriffs enforce attendance with fines. Rural England maintains military readiness through recreational shooting. The longbow tradition survives firearms development by generations. Individual French knights leave detailed personal accounts of the disaster. Jean Lemangro describes watching his brother die 30 yards from English stakes. Guillaume de Saveuse records losing 3 sons in the first charge. The Chronique du Religieux de Saint-Denis lists noble families extinguished in single afternoon. Personal grief transforms into national trauma across French aristocracy. English veterans return home with specific injuries that tell the battle's story. Parish records document missing limbs and arrow scars. Pension rolls list blindness from French crossbow bolts. Canterbury Cathedral maintains shrine for soldiers who survived impossible odds. Physical evidence of victory lives in broken English bodies decades after triumph. The tactical innovation spreads beyond England immediately. Welsh archers, perfect techniques learned at Agincourt. Irish kerns adopt English stake formations. Scottish armies study English success with professional interest. Border warfare incorporates lessons from French mud. Regional conflicts become laboratories for longbow tactics. French armor manufacturing responds with revolutionary improvements. Milan armorers design plates to deflect bodkin points. Augsburg workshops experiment with heat treatment. Nuremberg guilds develop articulated joints that shed arrows. The arms race begins in response to English victory. Technology advances through military necessity. Battlefield salvage operations continue for months after the fighting. Local farmers collect arrowheads by the basketful. Blacksmiths melt down broken weapons for raw iron. Scavengers strip leather from abandoned armor. The economic aftershocks ripple through regional markets. War generates wealth for survivors willing to work among corpses. Henry's chaplains document divine intervention claims throughout the campaign. Miracles reported during river crossings. Saints appearing to encourage English advance. Divine protection against French arrows. Religious propaganda transforms military success into holy war. God fights for England in French fields according to contemporary theology. French chroniclers struggle to explain aristocratic failure without questioning social order. Noble blood cannot admit defeat by common archers. Explanations invoke treachery and weather rather than tactical incompetence. Face-saving narratives multiply in monastery scriptoriums. Truth becomes casualty of aristocratic pride. The intelligence network that enables English victory operates across occupied territories. Norman peasants report French troop movements. Breton fishermen guide English ships. Gascon merchants funnel information northward. Local collaboration provides strategic advantages no army can overcome. Victory depends on French subjects who support English rule. Medical treatment of battlefield trauma reveals medieval surgical knowledge. English army surgeons amputate with bone saws, cauterize arteries with heated irons, extract arrowheads with specialized forceps. Survival rates exceed expectations given primitive conditions. Military medicine advances through wartime necessity. French wounded receive no comparable treatment. The psychological warfare component intensifies throughout the campaign. English heralds deliver ultimatums in perfect French. Battle cries echo across narrow fields. Propaganda undermines French morale before fighting begins. Mental preparation proves as important as physical training. Victory starts in French minds long before arrows fly. International diplomatic repercussions reshape European alliance systems permanently. Holy Roman Emperor remains neutral despite French appeals. Italian city-states calculate English trade advantages. Iberian kingdoms reassess military capabilities. Agincourt demonstrates English power to continental audiences. Diplomatic revolution follows military triumph across Europe. The economic cost of French defeat compounds for generations. Noble ransoms never paid drain royal treasuries. Widow pensions burden surviving estates. Military reconstruction requires foreign borrowing. French finances collapse under victory's weight. England profits while France pays compound interest on defeat. Castle design evolves in response to longbow effectiveness demonstrated at Agincourt. Tower heights increase for archer platforms. Arrow loops multiply in curtain walls. Killing fields cleared around fortifications. Military architecture adapts to projectile warfare. Stone defenses incorporate lessons learned in muddy fields. English recruitment patterns shift after victory proves longbow value. Rural quotas increase for archer levies. Training programs expand into Welsh marches. Veteran archers receive land grants for service. Military careers become attractive options for common soldiers. Social mobility increases through archery expertise. French noble families commission artistic memorials for Agincourt dead. Tomb sculptures proliferate in Norman churches. Stained glass windows commemorate fallen knights. Illuminated manuscripts preserve noble genealogies. Artistic production channels grief into lasting monuments. Cultural memory preserves what military records omit. The diplomatic marriage market collapses with French noble casualties. English heiresses lose French suitors permanently. Alliance negotiations stall without noble partners. Dynastic connections severed by battlefield deaths. International politics reorganize around demographic reality. Marriage becomes impossible between enemies who kill each other's nobility. Local French resistance intensifies after witnessing English brutality toward prisoners. Peasant attacks on English garrisons multiply. Supply convoys face constant harassment. Occupation costs escalate with security requirements. Military victory creates insurgency problems. Conquest proves more expensive than anticipated. The technological arms race accelerates across medieval Europe following Agincourt lessons. Crossbow production increases in German workshops. Artillery development accelerates in French foundries. Armor thickness grows in Italian forges. Military innovation spreads through professional networks. Competition drives advancement in killing efficiency. Weather pattern analysis reveals October 1415. Experienced exceptional meteorological conditions. Monastery records document weeks of continuous rainfall. River levels reached flood stages across northern France. Agricultural production failed throughout harvest season. Military campaigning occurred during worst possible conditions. Victory depended on environmental factors beyond human control. The last French knight dies with his visor open, staring at English sky. But excavations reveal something chroniclers missed. English and French dead buried together in common graves. Muddy fields swallow nationality distinctions. 20,000 casualties become archaeological evidence. The earth remembers what propaganda forgets. Recent carbon dating places additional remains centuries after the battle, suggesting pilgrimage deaths from visitors who never left the killing ground.